Yo, the second you start explaining your boundaries to a toxic person, game over. You already lost. They're not confused about your limits, homie. They're testing how hard they can push before you fold. Listen up. Explanation is straight up confession. The moment you're out here trying to justify your boundaries to some toxic clown, you've already let them dissolve into nothing. You're literally negotiating your right to exist, fam. And in the courtroom of a manipulator, the defense attorney always gets executed first. Facts. They don't disrespect you because they don't get it. Nah, bro. They disrespect you because they've done the math, they've calculated the cost of treating you like trash and realized it's literally zero. Zilch. Nada. They see you as a resource. Straight up. You're a vending machine for emotional supply. And real talk? You don't ask a vending machine for permission before you kick it when your snack gets stuck. You just boot that thing and keep it moving. Most advice out here is telling you to communicate better, use those I statements, teach people how to treat you. Bro, that's dangerous as hell. That's pure naivety. You can't teach somebody who's actively studying your playbook just to exploit every single loophole. That's like handing your opponent the game plan and expecting them not to use it against you. There's a psychological override switch, a mechanism that forces the human brain to completely reassess a target from prey to straight up predator in less than 3 seconds. It doesn't require yelling, no dramatic arguments, and here's the kicker. It requires you to abandon the one thing you think is saving you, your burning desire to be understood. I'm about to give you the cheat code to completely rewrite how they perceive you. But heads up, once you flip this switch, the whole dynamic shifts permanently. You're not going to be liked, but real talk, you'll never be messed with again. Let me break down this illusion for you. Disrespect ain't an accident, bro. It's a compliance test, plain and simple. In biological systems, predators prod before they pounce. They're nipping at the heels of the herd. They're not attacking yet. They're gathering intel. They're checking for a limp, for weakness. When some toxic coworker talks over you in a meeting, or when your narcissistic partner cracks jokes about your insecurities in front of your boys, they're not being thoughtless. Nah, they're running diagnostics. They're asking themselves, how much territory can I annex before this person actually defends the border? If you blow up and get angry, you failed. Anger tells them you're wounded, and wounded animals are mad easy to steer. If you stay quiet and look down, you failed again. Submission tells them you're domesticated, and domesticated animals exist to be used. Period. The mistake you've been making, the mistake we all make, is assuming the toxic person is operating on some kind of moral frequency. You think if you just explain how much they're hurting you, they'll stop. They won't, bro. To them, your pain isn't a deterrent. It's validation. It proves they have impact on you. It proves they're the architect of your entire reality. So how do you pass the compliance test? Simple. You don't fight the test, you grade it. You gotta enter what I call clinical detachment. Picture a surgeon looking at a tumor. The surgeon doesn't hate the tumor, doesn't yell at it. The surgeon observes it, analyzes its dimensions, and decides how to cut that sucker out. Zero emotion, just procedure. Next time they disrespect you, you gotta look at them not as an enemy, but as a patient exhibiting symptoms. Let me put this in perspective using history. Think about the Cold War. The entire stability of the world rested on mutually assured destruction. If you fire, I fire, we both die. That's balance through terror, baby. Toxic relationships, they're asymmetric warfare. They're firing missiles, insults, triangulation, gaslighting, and you're firing back with feelings. You're trying to use diplomacy against a guerrilla fighter. That's a losing strategy. You need to introduce psychological asymmetry. Your reaction can never match the energy they're throwing at you. If they go hot angry, shouting, aggressive, you become absolute zero. Calm, factual, slow. If they go cold, silent treatment, withholding, icy, you become warm, unbothered, busy, engaged with other people. You become the glitch in their algorithm. The toxic mind relies on predictability, yo. A narcissist knows exactly which buttons to push to get a specific yield of supply. If they push the guilt button and you dispense an apology, machine works. If they push the rage button and you dispense a fight, machine works. When you apply asymmetry, the machine jams up. System error. Let me simulate this for you. They say, you're too sensitive. That's why nobody likes you. The old you, the victim. That's not true. Why would you say that? I have plenty of friends. You're defending yourself. You're validating their judgment. You're feeding the machine. The new you, the architect. You pause. You hold eye contact for 3 seconds. Too long to be polite, too short to be aggressive. You say in a flat, clinical tone, that's a fascinating thing for you to say out loud. Then you go right back to what you were doing. Notice what just happened there? You didn't deny it. Denying implies their opinion has weight. You didn't fight back. Fighting implies they're a worthy opponent. You labeled their behavior. Fascinating. You looked at them like a bug in a jar. You just signaled, I'm not part of your play. I'm the critic sitting in the audience, watching you act poorly. There's this concept in interrogation called the dead drop. When an interrogator is trying to break a suspect, they look for hooks, emotional hooks. They try to find what the suspect cares about: family, freedom, reputation. Once they find the hook, they pull hard. The dead drop is when the suspect gives them absolutely nothing to hook onto. It's different from that gray rock method you might have heard about. Gray rock is passive. It's hiding, hoping the predator loses interest. The dead drop is active. It's weaponized boredom. Fam, let me tell you about Diogenes the Cynic. Alexander the Great, the most powerful dude in the known world, came to visit Diogenes. Diogenes was just chilling in the sunlight. Alexander stood over him and said, I am Alexander the Great. Ask anything of me, and I will grant it. Diogenes didn't stand up, didn't bow. He shielded his eyes from the glare, looked up at the emperor, and said, Stand a little out of my sun. He didn't insult Alexander, didn't fight him. He simply prioritized his own immediate reality, the sunlight, over the abstract power of the emperor. That's the ultimate disrespect to a narcissist, indifference to their hierarchy. Toxic people believe they're the main character. When you disrespect them back, you're just playing the villain. You're still a supporting actor in their movie. When you treat them with mundane indifference, you're telling them they're an extra in your movie. How do you execute this? Let me break it down. 1. The broken record of facts. Don't engage with their narrative. Engage only with undeniable physical reality. If they say, you're useless, you never do anything right. Look at these dishes. You don't say, I do everything around here. You say, the dishes are done. They're in the rack. They escalate. You have such an attitude. You say, the dishes are clean. Strip the conversation of adjectives. Adjectives are emotional handles. Nouns and verbs are facts. Stick to nouns and verbs, homie. 2. The 80/20ths eye contact rule. When they're ranting, look at their forehead, not their eyes. It's subtle but unnerving. It signals you're looking at them, not connecting with them. It breaks the limbic resonance. They can't sync with your fear if you're not locking into their soul. To truly master this, you gotta understand the economy of the interaction. Every interaction with a toxic person is a transaction. They're buying significance and they're paying with provocation. If they provoke you and you react, they've purchased a feeling of significance. They feel powerful because they controlled your emotional state. You gotta close the shop, bro. But here's the dark truth that few people discuss. You're addicted to the transaction too. You're addicted to the hope that this time they'll finally get it. You're addicted to the potential of who they could be. This is intermittent reinforcement, the same psychological mechanism that keeps people hooked on slot machines. Most of the time, the machine takes your money, disrespect, but occasionally, very occasionally, it gives you a payout, love, kindness, praise. Because the payout is unpredictable, your brain releases more dopamine than if it were consistent. You're chemically bonded to your tormentor. To stop the disrespect, you gotta break your own addiction. You gotta realize that the nice version of them isn't the real person. The nice version is the hook. They're the same object, my guy. You can't hug the bait without swallowing the hook. Let's go deeper into the mechanics of verbal judo. Toxic people rely on projection. They take their own shame, their own insecurity, and they vomit it onto you, so they don't have to carry it. When they call you selfish, it's usually because they're demanding you serve them. When they call you crazy, it's because they're losing control of the script. The return to sender protocol. This is a method of verbally handing the baggage back to them. It requires short, piercing questions. Statements are defensive. Questions are offensive. Scenario: they're screaming at you, accusing you of ruining their life. Standard reaction: crying, apologizing, defending. Protocol reaction: wait for a pause. Keep your face completely relaxed. Ask: does screaming make you feel better? Note the phrasing. You didn't ask, why are you screaming, which asks for an explanation. You asked about the function of the behavior. You're asking, is this performance working for you? Another phrase: I can see you're very upset. I'll come back when you've regulated your emotions. Then, and this is the hardest part, you leave. You don't storm out. Storming out is a reaction. You walk away at a normal pace. You go to the bathroom. You go for a walk. You physically remove yourself from the blast zone. They'll chase you. They'll text you. They'll say you're running away. Let them. You're training them like Pavlov's dog. Stimulus: they scream. Response: your presence vanishes. If they want your presence, which they do because they need supply, they gotta learn that disrespect equals invisibility. The greatest weapon they have against you is your own expectation of fairness. You operate on the social contract. If I'm good to you, you should be good to me. They operate on the predatory contract. If you're good to me, you're weak, and I'll take more. You gotta kill the expectation of fairness. This sounds bleak, but it's not. It's liberating. When you expect a viper to bite, you're not surprised when it strikes. You wear boots. You don't get mad at the snake for being a snake. You simply don't walk barefoot in the grass. Stop expecting them to change. Stop waiting for the apology. The apology's not coming, bro. And even if it does, it's counterfeit currency. When you let go of the need for them to be good, you strip them of the power to disappoint you. Disappointment implies you had hope. Observation implies you knew it was coming. Become an observer. There's the insult, right on schedule. There's the gaslighting, just like page 42 of the textbook. When you predict their behavior, you mock their complexity. You reduce them to a simple malfunctioning machine. And it's impossible to be intimidated by a machine that you have the blueprints for. We need to build your internal architecture, the techniques, the dead drop, the clinical gaze. Those are the software. But we gotta upgrade your hardware. Why does their disrespect hurt? Because part of you agrees with them. If a toddler walked up to you and said, "You're a purple dinosaur," you wouldn't be offended. You'd laugh because you know it's not true. But if a toxic person says, "You're unlovable," it cuts deep. Why? Because you fear it might be true. They're echolocating your wounds, bro. They send out insults like sonar pings, waiting to see where the signal bounces back. If you've got a wound about your intelligence, they'll find it. If you've got a wound about your body image, they'll find it. To become immune to disrespect, you gotta become self-sourced. This means your value is determined by an internal audit, not an external market price. You gotta know your flaws better than they do. If you accept your flaws, they can't be used as weapons against you. Eminem did this in the final rap battle of 8 Mile. He listed every single bad thing about himself before his opponent could. I am white. I am a bum. I do live in a trailer with my mom. He said it all. When he finished, his opponent had nothing left to say. The ammunition was gone. You gotta do this internally. Yes, I'm sensitive. Yes, I'm struggling financially right now. Yes, I have anxiety. Own it. Radical acceptance. Once you own the narrative, they can't lease it out to you at a high interest rate. We're now entering the most dangerous phase of the protocol. You've applied the dead drop. You've established clinical detachment. You're using the return to sender method, and you expect, logically, that they'll stop. They won't. Not yet. They'll escalate. In behavioral psychology, this is called the extinction burst. Think of an elevator button. You press it, the elevator doesn't come. What do? Do you walk away? Immediately. Nah. You press it again, harder, repeatedly. You mash that button. You get frustrated. You might even kick the door. Only then, when the machine proves it's truly dead, do you take the stairs. When you stop reacting to a toxic person, you've cut the wires to their button. They're not gonna shrug and walk away. They're gonna mash the button harder. They'll try to make you jealous. They'll spread rumors, smear campaign mode. They'll bring up your past mistakes. They'll accuse you of being cold, abusive, or narcissistic. Projection. Again, they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. Most people fail here. They see the escalation and think, "Oh no, I'd made it worse. I better apologize to keep the peace." Don't fold, bro. The escalation isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of success. It means they're panicking. It means the old keys don't unlock you anymore. The storm is loudest right before the structure collapses. You gotta hold the line. To withstand the extinction burst, you need armor. The heaviest weapon they wield is shame. They use shame to control you. You should be ashamed of yourself for treating me this way. Let me introduce you to a stoic practice from Cato the Younger, the man who rivaled Julius Caesar. Cato was a senator in Rome, obsessed with virtue, but he knew that the fear of public opinion was a chain. So he practiced a technique to inoculate himself against shame. He'd deliberately wear tunics that were the wrong color. He'd walk through Rome barefoot. He'd do things that violated the fashion norms of the elite. People laughed at him. They pointed, they whispered, and that was the point. He was training his nervous system to feel the heat of judgment and not burn. He was teaching his brain, they're laughing, and I'm still breathing. Their opinion has no kinetic force. you gotta apply the Cato protocol. When the toxic person tries to shame you, lean into it. Don't hide from the accusation. Wear it like an ill-fitting tunic. They say, "You're being so selfish." You simply nod, "I'm focusing on myself right now." Yeah. They say, "You look terrible in that." You say, "I'm comfortable." When you agree with the premise of their attack, or simply refuse to be embarrassed by it, you disarm the warhead. Shame requires buy-in. If you don't buy it, they can't sell it. This brings us to a tactical maneuver known in assertiveness training as fogging. Imagine throwing a rock into a dense fog bank. Does the fog break? Nah. Does the fog throw the rock back? Nope. The fog simply absorbs the rock. There's no impact. The rock disappears. Toxic people want a hard surface to strike against. They want resistance. Resistance creates friction, and friction creates heat, drama. Fogging is the art of agreeing with the truth, the possibility, or the principle of what they say, without agreeing to their demand. Let's look at the mechanics. Attack, "You're incompetent. You screwed up this whole project." Defensive response, hard surface, resistance, "No, I didn't. It was Mark's fault." Fogging response, "You're right. There were definitely errors in the project. I can see why you're frustrated. You agreed with the truth. There were errors. You validated their emotion, frustration, but you didn't accept the identity of incompetent. You offered no resistance. The rock passed right through you." Attack, "If you leave me, you'll die alone. No one else will want you." Fogging response, "That's a possibility. The future is uncertain." They're trying to incite fear, and you're responding with philosophical logic. You're not fighting the prophecy. You're simply noting it as one of many potential outcomes. It makes you sound sane, and it makes them sound hysterical. Be vigilant of the peace offering. In the cycle of abuse, after the explosion comes the honeymoon phase, or in more calculated dynamics, love bombing. They'll come to you with a gift, a favor, a sudden shift in mood. "I made your favorite dinner. I bought those tickets you wanted." This is the Trojan horse, bro. The Greeks didn't breach Troy by knocking down the walls. They breached it by appealing to the Trojans' vanity and piety. They left a gift, and the Trojans dragged that gift inside the walls themselves. When you accept a favor from a toxic person during a conflict, you're accepting a debt. The moment you eat that dinner or take those tickets, the social contract reactivates. You're now obligated to be nice. You're obligated to drop your boundaries. If you maintain your boundaries after taking the gift, you become the bad guy. After all I did for you, you're still acting like this? The rule of zero debt during the detoxification phase: accept nothing. Thank you, but I've already eaten. That's a generous offer, but I can't go. Keep the gates of Troy shut. Don't let the wooden horse in, no matter how beautifully carved it is. Free things from toxic people are the most expensive things you'll ever own. You need to shift your self-perception from a person to a sovereign state. A country has borders, visa laws, trade regulations. If a neighboring country keeps dumping toxic waste across the border, the sovereign state doesn't cry about it, doesn't ask, why do they hate us? It imposes sanctions. It builds a wall. It closes the embassy. You gotta view your energy as a natural resource, like oil or gold. The toxic person is a foreign power trying to extract your resources without paying for them. Sanctions protocol. If they disrespect you, trade stops. You don't talk about their day. You don't help them find their keys. You don't offer emotional support. You engage in essential services only. I'm taking the kids to school. The rent is due on the 1st. That's it. The fun parts of you? Your humor? Your empathy, your stories are high-value exports. Stop shipping them to a nation that's bombing your ports. They'll accuse you of punishing them. You're not punishing, you're protecting. There's a massive difference. Punishment is about causing them pain. Protection is about preventing your own pain. The result may look the same to them, loss of access, but the intent is entirely different. And the intent changes your vibe from spiteful to unbothered. We arrive now at the core message. Do this once, and toxic people will never disrespect you again. What's the once? Is it a sentence? A look? A fight? Nah. The once is an internal event. It's a psychological death. You gotta once and for all kill the hope. This sounds morbid, but it's the only path to freedom. The root of your suffering isn't their behavior. It's your hope that their behavior will change. You're holding on to a potential version of them that doesn't exist. You're in love with a ghost. You keep explaining yourself because you hope they'll finally get it. You keep fighting because you hope they'll admit they're wrong. You keep staying because you hope the person they were in the beginning will return. You gotta look at them with your clinical detachment and accept this is who they are. This is all they're capable of. They'll never change. They'll never understand. And I'm okay with that. Radical acceptance, homie. When you kill the hope, you kill their power. You can't be disappointed by a person you have no expectations of. You can't be manipulated by a person you don't need validation from. The moment you truly accept that they're a scorpion and that stinging is simply what scorpions do, you stop trying to teach them to be a puppy. You stop sticking your hand in the cage. This is the once. The moment the switch flips. The moment you realize, I'm not waiting for you to be better anymore. I'm proceeding with my life as if you'll always be this way. That shift in your energy is palpable. They'll feel it. They'll feel the tether snap. They'll know instinctively that you've left the building, even if your body is still sitting in the chair. Here's the paradox. When you finally stop caring, when you stop trying to please them, when you treat them with the polite indifference of a stranger, that's often when they start to respect you. Not the respect of love, but the respect of fear. They respect power, and self-control is the ultimate power. When they realize they can no longer trigger you, they'll likely move on to an easier target. Predators look for limps. If you don't limp, they lose interest. You'll have peace, but it won't be the peace of a warm hug. It'll be the peace of a fortress, quiet, secure, unassailable. You may lose the relationship, but you'll regain your sanity. And that's a trade you should make every single day. So the next time the insults fly, don't raise your shield. Don't draw your sword. Simply look at them like fog. Look at the sunlight. Let the words pass through you, because you're no longer there to receive them. You've already ascended. But be warned, when you build a fortress, you gotta be careful not to lock yourself inside alone. There's a way to have boundaries without becoming cold. There's a way to be strong without losing your humanity. That balance is the hardest art of all. Most people swing too far into the darkness and become the very thing they fought against. How do you keep your heart soft while keeping your walls hard? That's the real question, fam. But that's the ultimate mastery, staying human while being untouchable.